Thank you so much for joining me today. It's Danny here. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how to save money on groceries. So, right now, we're at a time in space and history where groceries are really expensive and it's really affecting people and their families' day life and finances, especially. So, I'm going to share my top 10 tips with you, plus two bonus tips at the very end on how to save money on groceries. And so, I'm going to jump right in. So, Number one is to plan your meals for the week. I know so many people are resistant to this, and I totally get it. It is not the most enjoyable task. But what I will say is that if you push through it and you're disciplined about it, then you only have to worry about it for that 5 or 10 minutes versus having to think about it and stress about it every single day. What are we going to have for dinner tonight? What are we going to have for dinner tonight? That's what I used to do, and I just decided enough was enough. So I'll be really transparent with you. I still don't love planning my meals for the week, but what I do love is what I get out of it afterward. I love the benefits of doing it in one sitting. And I realized it actually only takes 5 to 10 minutes to do it. I had a client the other day that told me she timed it and it took her 6 minutes to do her meal plans for the week. And she's still pretty new to the process. And so that was a huge win. If you need help or resources around this, I have an awesome resource that I'd love to share with you. So just connect with me, and you can even just email me or connect with me on social media, just writing the word meals to me, and I can get you that resource that I think would be super helpful. It's really been a game changer. And I mean that wholeheartedly for my family. Hint, you're going to spend less time in the kitchen and more time enjoying your evenings. Okay, tip number two is to make a grocery list. Again, these are going to seem really simple and they might feel obvious, but if you are not doing them consistently, consistency is the key. If you're not doing them consistently, then you are not going to enjoy all of the amazing benefits of taking these steps, which include the financial benefits. And so, if you can make a grocery list and make it in accordance with your meal plan. So, what we do is we plan our dinners. So then I put in the ingredients, I look at the meal plan and I think about all of the ingredients. You can actually, there's also apps that you can use for this. There's a lot of great apps that you can use to simplify this and streamline it. I actually use a whiteboard. And then I have an app on my phone for groceries that's connected to Google. So I can actually talk to my Google Home. And anytime we need something, I just add it to the list. So that's great for my husband and I because we can share that document. And it's just, it makes just the whole process a lot easier. So I make in the grocery list, I make it in accordance to my dinners that I have planned. And then I actually have a chart on my whiteboard of what the kids have for lunch. And I just made it really simple, where basically they have similar things each week. So, like, Mondays is sandwiches, Tuesdays is cheese and crackers, Wednesdays, what do I do for Wednesdays? I can't remember exactly. Sometimes it's pita and hummus. Sometimes it's like these pinwheels and so on and so forth. And so I make sure that I have all the ingredients for the kids' lunches, for our lunches. We often have leftovers for our lunches and then snacks. Okay, so that's what I do. And actually, another reason why I love using apps for this is that you can just have all your regulars that you put in, and then you can check them off as you go, as you check your cupboards or as you go out throughout the week. Um, okay, tip number three. Okay, tip number three is to plan to eat your leftovers. Okay, simple, I know, but I'm telling you, there's nothing complicated about any of this. It's actually the simple things that are going to make a difference, but it's doing them consistently. So, in that resource I was talking about later, this is what I plan into everything that we do. So, we schedule our leftovers into our meal plan. So, what we do is we cook twice a week and we cook 2 meals each time. And then one of those meals is usually doubled. And that's just, it tends to be pretty easy, especially with like chilies and soups to do that. But I'll cook, let's say on Mondays, I'll cook for Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday I schedule as leftovers. And we cook Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday can be leftovers, and then Sunday can be takeout, or we'll cook a separate meal, or we might cook a third time, or we might pull something from the freezer. And it's just an amazing way of life. I'm telling you right now, it's so worth it. And there's ways to overlap your ingredients and so on and so forth. So again, I'm going to refer you to that resource if you don't have your hands on it yet. But if you schedule your leftovers in, it's going to help you save on your budget because you're not going to be wasting the money that you're spending. You're not going to be throwing out that what you spent your hard-earned money on, right? And that's going to prevent you from going through the drive-through. It's or for eating out because you feel like you don't have anything left, and it's going to help save you on your next grocery bill, right? So schedule that in. Even if you eat your leftovers for lunch, which we often do, there's usually leftovers after that. And what I will say to you as well is that when you have these leftovers and that becomes a normal way of life, if you do have kids, they will get used to that. And what I love is when we have two meals cooked back to back, then on the third day of the leftovers, I always have two options for my kids. So last night their option was soup, or like soup and crackers or pasta, and they got to choose, and I almost never get an argument for them because they have that choice and they feel really empowered in that choice. So it really kind of takes over that like leftovers, it takes that away. Okay, tip number 4 is to use what you have. And again, so the minimalist lifestyle really resonates with me, and I've just found so much more happiness in slowing down and being really creative in using the resources that you already have. So one of my favorite ways to do this is before you go grocery shopping, is to plan whatever the night before, whatever it is, to use what you have produce wise. So make a big soup or a big stew, whatever works for your family, and try to use up all of those vegetables that are left from that week. If you have more left over, or maybe you don't have time to do the soup, you can set it aside and do it when you have time. Or what you can do is you want to remove all of the produce out of your fridge that is already in there, put in the new produce that you just bought, and then put the old produce from last week on top of that. This will really ensure that you use the older stuff first, so it's not going to go to waste, and then you have that fresh stuff underneath that's going to last for longer. This has been like so helpful for us in our house. We have way less waste, and we're spending less on our groceries because we're using, so if I use all those that produce to make a soup, now I've got a meal for the next week, or two meals for the next week, right? Um, yeah, I like stacking your freezer is such a great thing. It's also going to help you save money, which I'm going to talk about right now. So batch cooking your meals is going to really help on your budget. It's also going to help you with time, with your time budget, if you will. So number one, if you have meals prepared in advance, it's going to prevent you from having takeout. I can't even count the number of times that I've been so tired driving back from an activity with the kids and being like, I do not have any energy to cook. And then realizing, oh, actually, I already have this, this in the freezer, and I can just pull that out, and it's actually going to be way healthier for us, and it's probably going to be easier because often, like especially if you're getting stuff on the go or going through a drive-through, it's a long wait, right? Even to sit on there and order, it does take time. Often it might actually take less time to go home and pull stuff out of the fridge or freezer than it does to sit in the drive-through or to sit on the computer or on the phone to order. If you don't want to meal prep your full meal in advance, which I really don't love doing, I really am resistant to it. I don't love spending a bunch of hours in the kitchen. I max out at like 45 minutes. Um, so what we do is we actually prepare our proteins in advance, and this is how you're going to be able to whip up meals so quickly. So that looks like, I don't eat meat, but my husband does. So we'll do like chicken and then cut it all up, flash freeze that, and then put it in a freezer bag. We do the same with tofu. We do the same with beans. And then he'll do that sometimes with like beef. He'll cut that up into slices as well. And that is just so helpful for having stuff available right away. It's going to keep you out of the drive-through. It's going to keep you out of the restaurants. And it's also just going to help you spend so much less time in the kitchen because you've got all these other activities going on, right? So I really recommend doing that. And if you do like to prep ahead of time, just anything that you can have in the freezer. And if you schedule freezer meals into your meal plan as well, we try to do at least one freezer meal a week because so often we're cooking the freezer meals, but we're not actually using them and they end up going to waste because all of a sudden it's been 6 months and they've been in there and they're frostbitten. So pull those into your meal planning as well. That's going to really help you save on groceries because instead of buying, being really well intentioned and buying groceries for 7 meals a week, you're only buying groceries for 4 meals a week, and then you're using what you already have. Number 6 is to go eco-friendly. So self-admittedly, I'm a big tree hugger. And, but when it comes to a budget, you can actually often save money by opting for the family size packages versus individually sized package. So the first thing that comes to mind for me with this is yogurt. So I know it's so easy to buy those individual packages of yogurt, then you can just throw them in the kids' lunches or in your lunch. But it actually doesn't take very much time to do this on your own. If you have little containers, you can actually do it all in one sitting at the beginning of the week. And it probably would take you like 1 to 2 minutes to do that. So you're helping the environment by not using all of that packaging and purchasing that packaging. Packaging costs money, right? And the convenience costs money. Um, so I love to use those like BPA free containers, like the plastic containers, or I love the cloth and silicone snack bags to be able to individualize, like package these things individually, but then you're not spending money on that convenience at the grocery store. And the environment will be so grateful to you. I know it seems small, but every little thing counts. And if you think about over a year, how many of those yogurt containers that you use and just being able to get rid of that. I'm like lobbying for grocery stores where we can actually refill. I just think the packaging is so silly, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. It does exist in Germany. I will tell you that. Okay, so number 7 is to create a budget. So I know sometimes the word budget can feel like restrictive, but it actually can be really empowering. And if you don't like that word, just use a different one like weekly spendable. That my money coach uses. She uses the word spendables a lot, which I really like. But what happens is so many people go to the grocery store and they go rogue. It's like you have the list, but you go off the list, or you have a list, but you don't have a budget that's going to align with that list. And this is kind of a classic case of if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So instead of running on hope alone, like I used to for many, many years, pick a budget and stick to it. I think you'll be really surprised. Like, we got trapped for a really long time budget wise groceries, even though it wasn't a crazy amount. I'd budget for a certain amount per month, and I would always be over like $300, $400. And if you add that up over a year, that's a lot over a month. Maybe not always 300, but it was usually at least between 1 and 300 that we'd be over per month. And I had this mentality that like, well, it's groceries. Like, we need that. We need that stuff. It's like, it's like a basic need that needs to be met. And that's true. However, if you pick a budget, it really helps, and you're really committed to sticking to it. It really helps you prioritize what you actually need in that moment for that week and what can wait or what's like a want versus a need. And so that's been so helpful for us. And we've actually been really having fun being really creative about this. So, what the first thing I want to say about that is just be open to a perspective change. Like, if you're feeling like that is not possible right now, just be open and try it, because you might really surprise yourself and realize, like, oh, like maybe we didn't really need that. And what you'll also notice is that you're going to all of a sudden find things in the cupboards that you weren't using before. Like, we stopped buying protein powder for a little bit, and then I realized I had all these individual packages downstairs in my office. And I was like, oh, like I was saving those for when we went away, but then I would never use them when we went away. So I'm like, I should probably use these first before we purchase more. So things like that will pop up, and it can be really fun and exciting to kind of problem solve in a different way. Um, and yeah, just when you're not buying that extra stuff that you might not need in that moment, it just also is really great for preventing food waste, which prevents money waste. Tip number 8 is to use caution with sales. So be honest, like you're just by yourself, but are you, I don't want to say a saleaholic, but you know what I mean? Like, are you like really attracted to sales? This is a conversation my husband and I have had many times over the years. And so what I want to say to you is that it's only a good deal if you're going to use all of the items. Okay. Often it can be a better deal to buy the larger container versus the smaller. So for example, we always buy like the giant. We used to buy the giant ketchup, and it was just a better deal, right? However, we're not going to use all of that ketchup in that amount of time, and it's actually better for us to buy the smaller container now. Um, and stick to our weekly budget if that's going to help us stick to our weekly budget, rather than buy the bigger container that we think is going to help us spend less money over time. And let's see if I can explain this in an easy way. It's better to go for the smaller package and maybe pay a little bit more per ounce or per pound, whatever it is, per milligram, and stick to your budget consistently versus trying to pay less per kilogram or per ounce or whatever over time, but then not be able to stick to your budget. So, budget wise, it actually might make more sense to buy the smaller package. I hope I was clear with that. I'm definitely not like, I'm not a finance professional, though I do have gifts in the area and I do enjoy budgeting. If you do have certain items that you want to buy in bulk and it just makes sense to buy, we have a list of things that we buy, especially like if you're into certain like organic products or vegan products or whatever. It just makes sense to buy some of those things in bulk. So what we do is we have a separate budget for that. So we have like a Costco list where I get like my almond butter and my hemp hearts and chia seeds and stuff like that. And so we have a separate budget for that for like the month. And then we go and get those items. And that's worked into our overall budget. Also, if you're a Costco goer, stay out of the middle aisles. That's been a really, really helpful for me. Um, and it will really help your budget. You don't need it. Trust me, you don't need it. Okay. Tip number 9 is to wash and cut your fruits and vegetables ahead of time. So, what I do is when we get home from the grocery store, I actually put everything in the sink with a little bit of dish soap and some baking soda, and I just soak them for a minute. I'll wash and scrub whatever needs to be scrubbed, rinse them, and then let them dry. And if you're cutting them in advance, it actually doesn't take very long. It probably takes me 10 to 15 minutes to do it. That usually I don't cut up the fruits as much because they can go like brown a little bit easier. But what I'll do is I'll cut up the vegetables and make a salad, and that takes me about 10 minutes to do. And the thing is, for budget wise, is if you're making those snacks really accessible, like as accessible as like a pre-packaged food, like a granola bar or something like that, number one, it's going to be beneficial for your health because you're going for those whole foods first. But number two, it's going to keep you away from those pre-packaged foods. So you're not going to need to buy as many of those. And it's also going to keep you out of the drive-through. So if you can get used to grabbing, like one of my favorite things to grab and go is I always have like nuts in a container ready to go. So I'll grab an apple and some nuts, or like my pre-cut fruit or vegetables and some nuts, and I have that when I'm going out, and I know that I'm going to be out for a while and I'm going to need something. Number 10. Okay, budget your takeout. So a lot of the times when my clients start with me, they'll think like, oh, I have to like say goodbye to bad foods, and I use those in quotes because I think there's things that nourish our bodies or are nutrient dense, and then there's nutrient poor foods. And it's just about finding what's going to suit your body and nourish you. There's many ways that we nourish ourselves, but nourish you in the right way in that moment. Anyways, they think that they have to like give up takeout forever. And that's just not the case. We live such fast paced lives that that's really, number one, not very fun. We want to be able to go out and eat out, or we want to be able to like grab something if, we want to have like a treat or whatever, right? We don't want to feel totally restricted. But it's also not necessarily realistic. It's not setting yourself up for success when you're on the go. Sometimes you just, didn't have a moment to grab things, or you didn't grab enough. So we don't want to like pull the rug out from under you. But what I do recommend is picking a weekly or monthly amount that you're going to spend on takeout that fits into your budget and is realistic for your lifestyle. And so choose a day of the week where you can reset that number. So whether it's Friday or payday, whatever that is going to be really helpful so that you are able to do that and have that in your lifestyle, but that you're not going like crazy over your budget and wondering where your money is gone. Because often it's like the loonies and toonies, or if you're watching this from a country other than Canada, it's like your change in your coins that you're thinking it's just not very much, but over the week and over the month, that can actually add up to a lot. And you're like wondering where your money went, right? Or it's just that quick swipe, $5, $3, $10 there. And then all of a sudden that adds up, right? So you can use cash, have a separate cash amount that you pull and like put somewhere for takeout alone, or you can use reloadable cards that I know a lot of restaurants have. So if you kind of have a favorite spot, or have like a separate card, even like you could use Visa gift cards for that as well. So that is my top 10 tips. So For this resource, I actually have two bonus tips that I'm going to give you. So I'm not going to give you the obvious ones like price match or shop at a discount store, buy no name products. I feel like those are a little bit more obvious. But I am going to say ones that maybe you're not, share ones that maybe you're not thinking about. Okay, so I know that you've probably heard this before, but I'm just going to remind you of it is don't shop hungry, okay? When you're hungry, your brain is in a different space and you're going to think that you want more foods than you actually need for the week. And also, you're going to be more impatient and more irritable, which is not going to allow you to maybe look at the prices for as long as you need to look to decide what's best for you. Or you're not going to be in the right state of mind to buy the right foods for you and your family in that moment. And then this goes for kids as well. If you have your kids with you, if you can shop alone, that's really helpful to prevent having influence on items and having that fight. Um, but if you do have your kids with you, make sure they have a snack ahead of time or maybe during the shop is really helpful. By the way, if you do have kids that are like asking for things in the grocery store and other places, let them know ahead of time, give them one item or an amount of money that they get to spend. Maybe you can even encourage them to have like their allowance with them. And then it can be made into an adventure of like, okay, well, what item are you going to pick on your budget? Just teaching them budget skills from the start, and it's going to help release some of that responsibility and that ask that's coming to you. Okay, and then my last bonus tip is, and this is going to kind of overlap into something else, but is to not buy water and try to prevent yourself from buying drinks. And so, if you're going to buy juices and stuff, the frozen stuff is great to buy. It's like a huge difference in cost if you buy the little frozen ones and you make your own. If you really want to have like fresh filtered water, get like a Brita or get that I can't remember what they're called, but you know, the big bottles. It might actually be worth it to set aside money every week and buy a bigger system that's going to save you money over time. And it's also going to make an epic difference in the environment and how much waste. I know that you can recycle bottles and stuff like that, but it's actually way better to reduce and not have that moving through our system at all. And then the same goes for like pop. If you're really into drinks like that, I really love. We have a Soda Stream, and it is number one, a lot of healthier of an option. I actually love mixing soda water with a little bit of juice, lemon and lime or berries. So it's a much healthier option than a lot of the pops and stuff out there. But you're also going to be able to save money over time if you can set aside money for that and invest in that. It's going to save waste. It's going to save money. It's going to save the environment, all that sort of stuff. So I hope that this resource was really helpful for you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll put my contact details in the bio or in the description of wherever you're watching this. And I would just love to support you in whatever way you need. So please reach out for any questions. And if you're looking for some one on one coaching support, please reach out to me. What I specialize is in helping make healthy living doable for you and make it sustainable and also really simplifying it. And then on the other side of things, I'm really passionate about helping women find food freedom. So having a peaceful relationship with food and releasing that push and pull and that, you know, that guilt and shame and that conflict around food, and also body freedom, learning to love your body unconditionally just as it is where you are now. So thank you so much for joining me. Talk soon.